Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video is another big unboxing book haul. Listen, I'm not even gonna preface this video with an explanation anymore. I sold some books, I bought some books. It is the circle of life, if you will, but without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. First books I of course have to show off are my Book of the Month selects for the month of October, and needless to say, I was thrilled about the options for this month. If you're not familiar, Book of the Month is an online bookish subscription service. Every single month they curate a selection of titles from a variety of different genres and authors in the community. They're always new releases, they're always hardcover, and they're sent directly to your door. Super easy to skip a month if you're not interested, and very exciting news, I'm happy to officially say that Book of the Month is available now in Canada. That's right, friends. North of the border, you can now get Book of the Month sent directly to your door, which I think is amazing. I, of course, have an offer code. If you use the code Peruse Project, you're able to get your first box for only $9.99, an absolute steal. But without further ado, let's go ahead and unbox the two books that I grabbed for this month. So the first book I have to show off just honestly sounds right up my alley. I love everything about this book, from the concept to the cover, and that is Sign Here by Claudia Lux. And this is said to be a darkly humorous and surprisingly poignant story about our main character, Pei, who literally works in hell. He works like a corporate, bureaucratic job in hell. The coffee machine has been broken for a century. There are no available pens, and the only drink on offer is Jägermeister, which honestly is hilarious. The main character is on the cusp of a promotion. All he has to do is convince one more member of a very wealthy family to sell their soul to him. And the perfect opportunity to get this final soul appears to be presenting itself to our main character, as this family has decided to retreat to their lake house, but nothing is as it seems, and the story begins to unfold from there. Again, I love the concept of this. I love that our main character works in hell and he has to basically try to get the last soul. I'm sure it's going to be fun and funny, full of really likable and interesting characters. And yeah, honestly, I read the first part of the synopsis and was immediately sold and added this to my cart right away. And then the second book I grabbed, is another super exciting new release that I'm sure many of you guys are looking forward to as well. That is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. This is Chloe Gong's new YA fantasy release, and I believe it follows a main character that we met in her first duology, Violent Delights, but instead this is a brand new series kind of following a new set of storylines, which really calls out to me. This is set in 1931 in Shanghai, and it follows our main character Rosalind. And Rosalind was brought back from the brink of death by a very strange experiment. This experiment also had some interesting lasting effects, namely she cannot sleep, she does not age, and she can heal from any wound. It's basically a little vampire-ish, if I'm being honest. To sort of make up for her traitorous past, Rosalind has become an assassin for her country, and her codename is Fortune. At the beginning of this story, the Imperial Japanese Army is beginning their invasion of Shanghai and China at large, and she basically is given a new assignment to infiltrate their organization to try to figure out what is going on, especially as a string of murders begin to occur throughout the city. To do this infiltration, she's basically posing as the wife of another nationalist spy, and she does not like him. He's cavalier, he's a playboy, all of those things that make a great will they won't they romance setup. This book sounds really interesting. I like that we're back in Shanghai. I felt that Chloe Gong really had an interesting setting in her previous series, using history and the politics of Shanghai as a setting for her books. I'm curious about this one. I'm really interested in picking it up, and so I was thrilled to grab it at such a fantastic price. Alright guys, those are the two books I picked up from Book of the Month this month. A big shout out to Book of the Month for partnering with me for this video. Again, I'll have a link to their site as well as my offer code down below, but let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the books I grabbed. First up is this order from Barnes & Noble. I had no excuse really, but they had like a deal. Actually, they had a coupon on their site, and I decided to take advantage of that coupon and buy some books that I am really, really excited about. Let us see what is inside. So in this box are 3 of my most anticipated releases of the fall. I had to get them and I'm so excited to have them in my hands. The first is Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercolt, which is actually also available on Book of the Month. So if you want to get it for a better deal, be sure to check it out there. But this book just sounds up my alley in every way, shape, and form. It's a story inspired by Russian folklore, specifically the tale of the Baba Yaga. It seems to have a very peculiar just story structure itself. I feel like it's going to have beautiful writing. I cannot wait to read this book. And this story centers 2 siblings, the Yaga siblings. The first is Bellatine, a hardworking craftsman who specializes in woodworking. The other is Isaac, who is a con artist, street performer. These siblings have kind of had a falling out. They haven't seen each other in years, separated by many miles of American highway. But when these siblings are told they're about to receive an inheritance, they are reunited at the beginning of this book, but they quickly realize they're not receiving land or money, but instead a sentient house on chicken legs. This house is called Thistlefoot, and it has now arrived on the shores of America, far from its original home in Eastern Europe. And with its arrival, it's also brought along a dark and dangerous figure. And I think this is sort of an adventure story. I think we're moving with this house with these 2 siblings who are reunited, and they also have to take on this great evil that has traveled with Thistlefoot to the shores of America. I can't wait to read this. It feels like a modern fairy tale. It's also described to be in the likes of like Susanna Clarke and Neil Gaiman, 2 great writers that I love so much. I have a feeling this could possibly be a favorite book of the year, but there's only one way to find out. The next book I picked up, I grabbed, and hopefully will read this month, as I feel like it's the perfect October read, and that is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. I've mentioned this book many times because truly I have been anticipating it so much. And this is the same author who wrote The Year of the Witching, which I read and enjoyed right when that book came out a few years ago. That book is like a Puritan witch ghost story, but this is a book that seems to center vampires, which I love so much. And this follows our main character, Marion, and she has been raised in the slums her entire life, but she dreams of escape, but she really doesn't have very much opportunity to do so. But when she comes across a very mysterious job opening to become a blood maid, she decides to take it, no questions asked. From there, she travels to the north and to an aristocratic area where she begins to serve as a blood maid to a bunch of powerful and hungry rich people. There, she's drawn into this very dark and hungry court, and I think everything begins to unfold from there. I love vampires, as I said, and this seems to have a lot of like the vampire atmosphere. I already know I love Alexis Henderson's writing quite a bit. It's very spooky, very atmospheric, and I feel like this is going to be a great pickup. Then the next book I grabbed is actually, I want to say, a YA fantasy story. I've seen so much hype and love for this book that I decided to check it out for myself, and that is A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. First off, I just have to say how much I love this cover. It is stunning. The illustrations, the typography, everything about it is just a 10 out of 10. And the tagline of this book also sounds very intriguing. It says, "A magical secret, a mythical hunt," and I love that could risk everything. I've really been craving romance, and I love sort of an atmospheric fairy tale-esque setting for a romance to take place, and I'm really hoping that this is going to deliver on all fronts. In the story, we follow 2 main characters. The first is Margaret, and after she spots the legendary Hala in the forest, the last living mythical creature, she knows the half moon hunt is soon going to start. And this hunt is not only tradition, but also brings the hunter who's able to bring down this Hala fame and fortune for the rest of their lives. Margaret is determined to not only take down this creature, but she has confidence that she's able to do so, as she is the best sharpshooter in her town. But there is one problem. She needs an alchemist, and the hunt itself requires a team of 2. Enter our other main character, Weston, who isn't an alchemist quite yet, and he's also been fired from every apprenticeship he has ever had. He has one final hope in Master Welty to take him as a student, but when he arrives at his manor, he doesn't meet this man, but instead Margaret, who is skeptical and kind of begrudgingly allows him to become her partner in this hunt. And it says this unlikely pair begins to work together and possibly unlock a dark magic that could be the key to their victory. This sounds really interesting. I love any sort of fantasy book that centers alchemy. I also feel like this is going to heavily center a romance. I'm hoping looking for very whimsical and beautiful writing as well, I'm curious about this one. The hype really sold me. Next up, I have a library book, as I did get my Austin library card recently and had to check something out to mark the occasion, and that is Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. This is book 1 to the Legends of the First Empire series. This series has been on my radar for quite a few years now, ever since the first book came out, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be for me, but honestly, I've only heard incredible things about this series. The reviews are glowing, and I finally feel like called in to give it a try. This series also centers a lot of my favorite fantasy tropes, specifically a god versus humanity sort of situation. And this is set in a fantasy world where since the beginning of time, humans have worshipped a set of gods that they call Freya. Appear to be truly a race apart. They are incredible in battle, they have really powerful magic, and are seemingly immortal. But at the beginning of the story, one of the humans actually kills a god, kind of turning this world upside down. Now, a few humans stand in between total annihilation of humanity by the gods themselves. One of these people is the god killer, very reluctant to take on this new notoriety they have received. We also have a young seer, very troubled by their visions of the future. And then lastly, a young ruler who must overcome personal tragedy to lead her people to safety. I've again heard so many fantastic things about this. I've read some Michael J. Sullivan books in the past, and I do feel like he creates really interesting characters and dialogue. I didn't love his other series, but I do feel like this one could be more up my alley, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. Next up, I have a few books I've picked up recently from the used bookstore. I'm gonna breeze through these as I have featured them in a previous video. First is Ancillary Sword by Anne Leakey. This is the sequel to Ancillary Justice, which is a sci-fi space opera series that I am dying to pick up as I feel like I'm gonna love so much. This trilogy is not only beloved, but also it's very award-winning, having won the Hugo, the Nebula, and other awards as well. In this series, we follow our main character Breck, who is seemingly possibly on like a bit of a revenge tour. Breck was once a very powerful soldier and was actually ahead of this thing called the Colossus, which is a ship that connects the minds of thousands of soldiers throughout the galaxy, but one act of treachery kind of rips all of this away, and we follow Breck from there. It sounds very mysterious. I'm really hooked by the concept of this book. I've been reading more sci-fi and enjoying it, so when I saw the sequel for such a good price, I grabbed it. Speaking of a sequel I found at a great price, the next book I have is The Storm of Echoes by Christelle Dabos. This is book 4 to the Mirror Visitors series, one of my favorite YA fantasy series out there. It's very unique, very magical. The first book follows our main character Ophelia as she leaves her home to marry a man at a mysterious spire. In this fantasy world, there are floating spires in the sky that have their own cultures, religion, and magic. Ophelia has her own family magic, which is she's able to touch objects and see the history of the object itself, as well as all of the people who have handled that object. Ophelia arrives at this new spire, and it's very cutthroat and very political, very much like the Court of Versailles vibes, with people who can do illusion-based magic. I've really enjoyed the first couple of books in this series, and again, fourth book, half off, I could not say no. And lastly, I grabbed for the month of Halloween, The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. This is book 1 to what I think could be like a serialized mystery story following a main character, Ropa. She lives in Edinburgh after some sort of catastrophic event. Now Edinburgh is kind of dark and grim and dangerous, and ghosts and magic are a part of everyday society. Ropa herself has dropped out of school to sort of pay the bills as a ghost whisperer. She essentially kind of passes messages from the living and the dead. However, at the beginning of the story, Ropa sort of comes across a confusing mystery, and that is young children are being kidnapped and brought back to their parents, sort of husks of their former selves. And Ropa realizes this has something to do with ghosts, and so she begins to investigate. It's really interesting. I wouldn't say this book blew my mind, but Ropa as a main character was absolutely delightful to have centered in this story. I'm really curious about later books in this world, but yeah. But I did buy this month, and I also read it this month, which I find to be good. Next up, I want to say this is some publisher mail that I requested. I won't lie. I hoped and prayed that this would be sent to my doorstep, and I think it might be what I'm hoping. Yes, I was correct. This is a package from Tor, and big shout out to them for sending me these books. The first book is Gideon the Ninth, which is of course book 3 to the Gideon the Ninth sort of series, which is a very bizarre, very funny necromancers in space murder mystery vibe. I've read the first book. I really enjoyed it. I found it to be so unique from the writing style to the concept that I'm thrilled to have the third book in my hands. I need to get back to the series. I also feel like it's a perfect fall read, but Gideon the Ninth is basically following our main character Gideon. And in the first book, she has been trying to escape the planet she has grown up on her entire life. She has failed her entire life because her arch nemesis, Harrowhawk, also her same age, has stopped her every single time. At the beginning of book 1, though, a very unusual and politically advantageous opportunity is presented to Ninth House. Harrowhawk basically makes a bargain with Gideon, and that is if she travels with Harrowhawk as her sort of guard and swordsman to this political gathering, Gideon can leave. And so begins the strangest sort of horror murder mystery story in space book with necromancy I truly have ever encountered. The writing is hilarious. The chemistry between Harrowhawk and Gideon is fantastic. It's gruesome, it's dark. I can't wait to pick up book 3 because I feel like I'm gonna love it. I've also heard great things about the audiobook, which I'm very curious about. And then the next book I'm so excited to have in my hands, and that is the Tyrant Baru Cormorant. This is book 3, the first book being the Traitor Baru Cormorant, which I read last month and quickly became obsessed with. It is like my new fantasy favorite. The first book was so gripping and unique and riveting, and it's so hyper political, which I love so much. If you love a fantasy series that basically centers like a Tyrion Lannister style character or a Galacta character, the Baru Cormorant series is for you. The first book, we're introduced to our main character, Baru Cormorant, and she lives in a world where there's this very powerful and evil empire that has a lot of colonial interest. Baru Cormorant has grown up on a small island nation with her family, her fathers, and her mother, and she's really happy there. She's also a very bright child. At the beginning of the book, though, this evil empire called the Empire of Masks has come to their shores, and they sort of take over lands in a different way, not so much with bloodshed, but with like economic takedown. They introduce their currency, they make them reliant on trade, they bring their education, they destroy their culture and basically put their own in its place. And Baru Cormorant sort of sees the slow takeover of her land, and she swears vengeance. From there, we watch our main character as she sort of embeds themselves in its bureaucratic system, all with the goal of accumulating so much power that she can rip down the empire from the inside out. The first book was fascinating as we watch Baru kind of take on her first assignment working for the empire in another faraway land to quell a rebellion. It's just so interesting to see how all the strings of this series are pulled. It's so much like backdoor maneuvering and handshakes and like economic warfare. It's really interesting. It's obviously a very dark series, but Baru Cormorant as our main character is just fantastic. I loved the first one so much. I gave it 5 stars. Now I have the third one in my hands. I just need to pick up book 2, and I will surely be marathoning these. Next up is actually another book of the month pickup because I could not help myself, and when I saw that this book was available, I needed to add it to my shelf because it's perfect for this season, and that is The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is another Halloween witchy romance, and I think it's set in the same world as The X-Hex, which I read last year and loved. I love a fun, steamy, lighthearted romance. I think they're just so easy to read. I fly through them all. And this follows our main character, Gwen. And this book is set in a really small town, like very much like Gilmore Girl vibes. And Gwen is happy running a witchcraft shop with her cousin and her mother, especially since the coven has been reestablished. But when a new person comes into town named Wells, after he's wanting to sort of rediscover his own family heritage, and opens up a competitor shop right across the street, there's just a lot of hatred going back between Gwen and Wells. But when these two people share a passionate kiss, things get complicated. I love small town politics. I love that they have like competing magical stores. This just sounds like the perfect Halloween read. Again, I already loved the other book released sort of in this world by Erin Sterling, and I can't wait to pick this book up. I feel like it's going to be so cute. And then the last book I have to show off here is one of my most anticipated releases, and this is my pre-order coming in. Let's open it up. Yes. I need to make time to read this book, honestly, as soon as possible, and that book is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. Celeste Ng is one of my favorite literary fiction authors. I've read her 2 previous releases and have adored both of them. I would say Everything I Never Told You is probably my favorite work, but this book just sounds amazing. It seems that Celeste Ng is kind of moving into a bit of speculative fiction, even like dystopian with this release, and all of that sounds so unbelievably intriguing to me. And this follows our main character Bird, who lives a very quiet existence with his broken father, who was once a famed linguist, but now sort of shelves books at the university library. Bird knows not to stand out too much, not to stray too far from his father or the library, but most of all, to not ask too many questions. For the past decade, their lives have been ruled by new laws that were passed to protect American culture, which essentially allows the government to control not only what is released, but also to relocate children of dissidents, especially those of Asian origin. With these new laws, libraries have also been forced to remove works seen as unpatriotic, including the works of Bird's mother, who is a poet. Bird has grown up disavowing his mother, knowing he should never ask questions about her, read her work in any way, but once he receives a cryptic letter with a drawing, he begins to go on a quest in trying to find her. It says, Our Missing Hearts is an old story made new, the ways supposedly civilized communities can ignore the most searing injustice. It's a story about the power and the limitations of art to create change, the lessons and the legacies we pass on to our children, how any of us can survive a broken world with our hearts intact. This just sounds amazing. I'm thrilled to have this in my hands, and I really feel like I need to read this before the end of the year. I love this author so much, and this synopsis just seems like it could be her best work yet, and I'm thrilled. Alrighty guys, that is my epic book haul and unboxing. I will again have a link to their site and my discount code down below, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!